Do I need to be good at drawing to animate is a question I hear a lot among both amateur and experienced artists in the art community. I see a lot of people wait on their animation journey and even never start it because this plagues their mind. I'm here to solve the mystery though, and the answer may surprise you. Hello ladies, gents, and friends, I'm Double Geyser, but you can just call me Double. A little bit of info about me is that I'm an animator and artist. I've been animating for almost 8 years now, and I've been drawing for 14 years, so I have a bit of wisdom I shall bestow upon you all. Animation is one of those things that people see as a final boss in art, if you will, since it takes a lot of effort to not just make, but learn. With art, you have to figure out how to draw something. However, animation adds a whole layer of not just drawing, but also figuring out how to move that image. Then you repeat the process hundreds of times just to get a singular final product. Using that logic, it isn't hard to see why people would want to wait to develop their art or even stall because they think they aren't good enough. Well, I'm delivering the good news that you do not need to be good at art in order to do animation. You can even be good at animation but bad at art. You may be wondering how you can be better at animation than art when a lot of people consider animation to be harder than drawing. While I do think that the topic of whether animation is harder than art or not is subjective, there actually is a logical reason why you can be a proficient animator yet a poor artist. All animation means is the illusion of movement. If you're able to understand movement, you can animate. For example, I can take a shape as simple as a circle and animate it in a way that demonstrates my proficiency. Interestingly enough, I think that being too good at art can actually hinder your animation. There's something in the animator world called being animation friendly. It refers to the object you're animating being simple enough to draw 100 times without making you lose your mind. To demonstrate this, let's imagine a cat. Now, let's give this cat 5 stripes. Not so bad, right? Well, what if we wanted to make an animation that's just a minute long at the industry standard frame rate, which is 24 frames per second? Now, let's assume that drawing the stripes takes 2 additional minutes. 1 minute is 60 seconds, 24 frames per second for 60 seconds is 1,440 frames, and 2 additional minutes per the frame because of the stripes for 1,440 frames is 2,880 minutes. Divide that by 60 to convert into hours, and you get an additional 48 hours of work. That does not even include the time it takes to animate the cat itself without the stripes. So now I ask you, which would you prefer to draw? The cat without the stripes or the cat with the stripes? Animation-friendly subjects are majorly important to the animation process, and if you want to learn more, Tennelle Flowers, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I'm so sorry, I've been watching him for like 5 years and I still don't know, whoops. Anywho, he uploaded a great video about it that I'll link in the description below. Okay, so what does this have to do with being good at art though? Having more experience in art typically means that the subjects you'll draw will have more detail. For example, a skilled artist may start to include visible joints, hair texture, lips, clothing, wrinkles, and more. These are a lot of extra factors that can hinder the animation process. The artist may focus on drawing the subject itself well, but not focus on the animation aspect, ignoring it in favor of detail. By the time it comes around to animate it, there's too much to keep track of, so it comes out looking stiff or minimal. I do want to add that not all good artists are detailed in their work. Personally, I draw in a more cartoony style, though I am capable of realism. In fact, all of the best cartoonists are astoundingly well informed about anatomy and such because you need to know the rules in order to break them. Side tangent aside, this problem of over-detailing is avoided in amateur artists. While it's true that beginners can be detailed, just look at artists drawing every individual strand of hair, I'd say that the majority of new creators have art styles consisting of simple shapes. This gives them the advantage of just being able to focus on making the movement. Improvement tends to skyrocket as a result of this. Another thing I noticed is that because they don't have to spend as much energy detailing, they'll be a lot more experimental with animation too. Putting characters in established settings, having fight scenes, walking, talking, a lot of stuff which is honestly pretty impressive. It's not just limited to animation too. As a kid, I'd always add in backgrounds and suns in my drawings, but now I groan at the thought of establishing a setting in my drawings. You just don't typically see this kind of push with experienced artists learning animation, and I get it. There's a lot of pressure that us artists have, and even if drawing is our passion, it can sometimes be taxing. We compare ourselves to others and put ourselves down. Animation is already something completely new, and it can make someone who's even drawn for 10 years feel like they don't know what they're doing. There's nothing wrong with staying in your comfort zone. I completely understand just wanting to focus on one thing at a time, or even sticking to more simple movements such as head bops. I am, however, trying to highlight how being bad at art doesn't mean you'll be bad at animation. So, does this mean that there's no winning? If you're good at art, are you destined to be bad at animation? Well, no. Just because it can be easier to hinder your animation progress when you're skilled at art does not mean that you have no advantage. Remember how earlier I mentioned that great cartoonists are well informed in art? The reason for this is because the better understanding you have of anatomy and form, the easier it'll be to understand how it moves. If I don't know much about apples, how will I draw it rotating? I have to study the apple and master it in different angles to feel confident moving it around. This is something where beginner artists fall short. I often see them defensively saying, "I know anatomy," while the proportions are clearly off in a non-intentional way. I totally did this all the time as a young artist as well. I had bare bones knowledge of anatomy and used that as a justification to not study it, and felt attacked at the idea of not actually knowing it well. Like I mentioned earlier, staying in your comfort zone is okay, and if your goal is just to draw for fun and not worry about improvement, then this is not an issue. However, once I started to properly study proportion and form within anatomy, animating got a lot easier. I'm not doing guesswork as to how the body moves, it's now in my quiver of skills. Now, my responsibility is just to make sure I choose the right skill and execute it well. It's easy for us artists to get ambitious and try to jump right into making a fully completed animated episode of our characters or something of that sort, but sometimes you can really benefit from just focusing on a few simple shapes to start with. Give it the Generation 4 of My Little Pony treatment. Turn the subject into something you can construct from marshmallows. Trust me, it helps. So to answer the question, do you need to be good at art to animate? No. As long as you approach animation in a productive way, your skill level does not matter. Take things one step at a time, or take all the steps at once. I don't know, it's art. There really is no correct way to do things. I placed a lot of emphasis on improving in this video, but I really want to clarify that all that matters is that you're having fun. I'll leave you off with a summary of tips and some additional tricks. The best way to learn animation is to start with the basics. I find that using a circle works best to practice the principles of animation. You can squash and stretch it, you can use pacing on it, and each circle only takes 5 seconds to draw. Another tip is to make sure your designs are animation friendly. You can have characters specifically intended for animation or have an art style for animation. The next thing to keep in mind is that you can animate on Paper, Flip-a-Clip, Procreate, Fire Alpaca. There are a lot of resources that you can use and you don't have to stall for a good program. Hell, I still use Flip-a-Clip after all of these years. There are a lot of tutorials that can help you find what's right for you and how to get started. Speaking of which, use tutorials. If you're stuck and don't know what to do, an explanation can do wonders to help you get chugging. My final tip is to look at examples. Get a good grasp of anatomy, watch other people's animations, look at your own body moving, and get an idea of where to go. Animation is complicated and wonderful. It's easy to get stuck or feel like you're never good enough, but I assure you, you are. Don't hold your dreams for a day when you get better. Go ahead and reach them now. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, then like and subscribe for more. This is a new form of content I'm doing. I want to branch out more, so let me know what you think of this in the comments. Did you agree with what I had to say? What would you do differently? Anything to add? I want to hear it. This was a lot of fun. Have a great day.